made one of the most important decisions of my life. I knew the situation would be difficult, and that's an understatement, but there is nothing that could ever prepare somebody to be without their family. Your parents, your siblings, your pets, gone. A father is supposed to be the man that you can trust. A father is a man who is supposed to protect you. Dad, you didn't make me feel protected. You made me feel violated. A countless number of times I've seen you in my nightmares and awakened with a wet pillow. I didn't feel safe in my own home. I still remember the feeling of anxiety every single time I inched open the bathroom door because I thought I would see you waiting for me on the bed. The anxiety I felt as I wrapped my towel tighter and walked to my bedroom as fast as I could so that you weren't able to watch me from the couch. I felt like I was constantly being watched. I was always aware of his eyes on my body. Whenever in his presence, I would be conscious of my body's position just to make sure that he couldn't see my backside. This only worsened as I became older, more mature, and more developed. I didn't feel safe in my own home. It feels like I have a lens view of the world where I see every single man just as sick and perverted as you are. I must constantly remind myself that those other men aren't like you, and that those other men don't find their daughters sexy. Too many times to count, I was asked why I hadn't come forward sooner and why I hadn't told somebody. I need you to put yourself in the shoes of a terrified 14-year-old girl. Where was I to go? How was I to live and provide for myself financially and emotionally? How could I come forward? I felt such shame that I hadn't stopped it sooner. Now fast forward to 18 years old. I was still terrified and financially and emotionally unprepared, but I couldn't allow myself to live like that anymore. In 2015, I developed severe migraines with no apparent cause. The pain became so bad that I began missing school, work, and extracurriculars. I underwent numerous tests because nobody could figure out why I had this horrible pain. Even I was unsure. I was trying to contain this monster of memories in a box far too small for its size. Every day that went on, the monster grew bigger and heavier. I began experiencing mental health issues shortly after my 18th birthday, and again, I didn't know why. I now understand that I had been suppressing those memories and those feelings for so long, and when I finally broke, it was like a tidal wave that I thought would never calm. I couldn't eat or sleep. I couldn't function for weeks. I felt disgusting in my own skin, like your eyes were still roaming even though I was alone. There was nothing I wanted more than my mother's embrace, for her to tell me everything would be okay. Instead, I received messages telling me that I was a disappointment and that I had ruined the family. I felt an immense sense of guilt when I finally came forward. I really did believe that I had broken up the family, but I later accepted that it was already broken long before me. It took me a long time to learn that this wasn't my fault. I used to wish that I had never said anything, that I had just kept quiet and learned to deal with it. I used to regret speaking up, but then I thought of my beautiful niece. She was 5 years old at the time. I saw the way you looked at Brooke, the lust in your eyes, the so-called love you felt toward her. My heart breaks when I think about this happening to her. It breaks knowing that you have the capacity to take away her innocence like you did mine. How could I have stayed quiet? How could I have lived with myself if she later came forward, knowing that I had the power to prevent it? I have missed Brooke every single day since the last time I saw her. I know she misses me too, and I know she probably doesn't understand why she lost her Zia, but one day she will. One day she will realize that I did this to protect her, and that I have never stopped loving her. I was terrified to tell my friends what you had done to me out of fear of losing them. I could hear over and over again in my head, How could you not tell us? How could you bring us around him, into your house? I was scared of their potential reactions, but only because that's how I experienced his presence. Not only were my friends kind and supportive, but I had been able to rekindle lost friendships. I had lost friendships as a result of you, as a result of them feeling so uncomfortable around you that they had ended our friendship out of embarrassment and fear. Things will never be the same with those friends, but it brings me comfort knowing that they will no longer need to fear you. I have lost so much by coming forward, but I now understand that I have gained much more. I wouldn't be who I am today if it weren't for my extended family. If it weren't for Melissa and Josh opening up their heart and home to me the moment I said something. If it weren't for her parents, Maiziela and Anziotoni, opening up their home to me and allowing me to live with them for as long as needed, providing me with everything I needed, including love, in order for me to be able to put my pieces back together. If it weren't for my loving godparents, Lucia and Rob, for always ensuring I was okay, taken care of, and deeply loved. If it weren't for my best friend in the whole world, Sydney, for being my rock, for loving and listening to me, and for making me laugh when I needed it most. And if it weren't for all of my other extended family members, my Zia Cecilia, and my cousins, for all the love and support I've gotten throughout these extremely difficult years. Yes, I did lose a lot. I lost my parents, my siblings, my niece, my pets. But I gained relationships with people that I will never take for granted. My extended family has shown me what it means to be a family, a real family, one that will always protect and care for you, and one that only wants the absolute best for you. And that, in my opinion, is a greater gain than any loss. I know that you never expected me to say anything. You trained me to keep my mouth shut, to put a mask on any time we were around other family members, because you would always say, what happens in the house stays in the house. You thought I would be the weak one. You thought I would never leave or betray you. You tried to spoil me with material items and make me so dependent on you financially and emotionally that I could never leave. You thought I would break and stay broken once I left. But I'm stronger than that, and I'm now stronger than you will ever know. I didn't want this statement. I didn't want to read this statement aloud. I didn't even want it read on my behalf. The reason I'm here speaking now is because I don't want, but I need you to know what you in this entire situation has done to me. You've made me feel the most pain that I have ever felt in my entire life, the most sadness, the most anger and disgust. Nevertheless, these events and these feelings have helped to mold me into the strong, loving, and most importantly, independent woman I am today. I have spent thousands of dollars in therapy. It has helped me immensely, but I still have an extremely long way to go in terms of recovering. And I know that I will have to spend thousands more. I'm not the same person as I was 2 years ago. My courage, my esteem, and my strength has developed exponentially, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm still a hardworking and determined individual you once knew, and I've done everything I can in order to provide for myself financially and emotionally, even when that means working 4 jobs while enrolled in full-time university. No matter how traumatic this experience has been, I would not take it back if I meant I was still under your grasp. I am free, and I will stay free. I'm not saying this to inflict pain upon you. I'm saying it because I need you to understand what you did to me and the lasting effects of your actions. I am trying so incredibly hard to forgive you. I know you're sick. That's the only way I've been able to understand your actions. Perhaps one day I'll forgive you, but I promise you that I will never forget. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rupert.
Thank you. Your Honor,
you've heard from the victim impact statement, there's a number of aggravating factors associated with this case. In my submission, fathers are supposed to be protective of their children, not predatory. Mr. Rino took advantage of his daughter's trust. He lied to her repeatedly, introducing her to cocaine. And in doing so, he exposed her to a dark and sinister side of his own personality for personal gain and sexual gratification. The impact of the offense on Brianna has been enormous. As Your Honor has heard, she's lost a part of her youth, a part of her family, and her own mother has aligned herself with Mr. Rino. It's apparent, at least to the Crown, from these facts that Mr. Rino needs some very significant treatment and counseling. These, in my submission, are services that he has needed for a very long time, but has not sought out on his own accord. It's hope that he will now follow this court's direction and follow through with Your Honor's treatment recommendations for him. I should say that if he continues to engage in sexualized email communications with children, I am very certain that the police will be proactive about this again. For reasons discussed at the pretrial, the Crown is recommending a non-custodial sentence. I won't outline those reasons again. They were made clear to the court on a prior occasion. The sentence that the Crown recommends on today's date is one of a suspended sentence and 18 months of probation with a heavy emphasis on treatment and counseling. I'd ask the court to consider the following conditions, which I have thought of carefully. The statutory conditions that he keep the peace and be of good behavior, that he report to a probation officer when and as directed, that he reside at an address approved of by his probation officer, and he not move from that address without notice in writing to his probation officer, that he attend for treatment and counseling as directed by his probation officer, specifically including but not limited to substance abuse and sexual offending. He will sign the necessary waivers and consents to allow his probation officer to monitor his progress in treatment and counseling. He will not contact directly or indirectly, and that includes by any means of communication, Brianna Frangione, except with her written revocable consent, which must be filed in advance with his probation officer. He's not to attend within 250 meters of Brianna Frangione's places of residence, education, employment, or any place that she might be, except with her written revocable consent, which must be filed in advance with his probation officer. And he's not to possess any weapons, as that term is defined in the Criminal Code of Canada.
All right. Mr. Engel?
Your Honor, that's a joint recommendation that we advance for the Honor's consideration. We agree with the terms. I can tell you a little bit about Mr. Rino. Mr. Rino turns 50 about a month from now, the end of next month. Born and raised in Ottawa. Been married to his wife Lisa for 28 years. His 3 children. We've heard about Brianna, but he has 2 other children and a 7-year-old granddaughter as well. He has a very good relationship with his parents, 3 siblings. He describes them as a very big support system to him, and describes his eldest sister as his best friend. Work-wise, Mr. Rino runs 2 companies. He's in the concrete business, essentially commercial and residential. Draws a salary of about $120,000 per year. He owns his home, There's about a $200,000 mortgage remaining on a luxurious home. Mr. Rino is a high school graduate from Brookfield High. He attended and graduated Algonquin in 1993 for manufacturing engineering. Leads a pro-social life, both amongst family and friends, except for the allegations we've heard here. He's got hobbies. He's a drummer, and he has an avid interest in motorsports, car racing. He's done some volunteer work. He's gone to Haiti on a couple of occasions and built a church with his own funds. And he's volunteered with Nepean Ringgit, Rockland Ringgit, and very extensively with the Myers Riders football program, which is probably the premier minor league football program here in the city. As Your Honor knows, cases like this are very difficult from everybody's perspective. And we acknowledge how brave Brianna is to come forward and to speak as eloquently as she spoke. And I can tell everybody that Brianna's words have not been lost on her dad. This is obviously going to be a very lengthy, rehabilitative and healing process. And Mr. Rino hopes that it heads in that direction. He's pled guilty to the criminal harassment charge and admitted those facts, which spared Brianna. I see we have Melissa Denardis on the screen. Spared Melissa from testifying. There would have been a similar fact application. This would have been a very drawn out, complex, convoluted, and difficult trial for everybody. And that not only saving 5 to 7 days of court time, but sparing everybody the pain and the process of testifying in open court on very difficult subject, topic matters, and issues. So, having said that, Mr. Rino has accepted responsibility. He's prepared to accede to the Crown recommendations for counseling, with a view towards hoping one day that he could heal on his own, obviously, and perhaps with Brianna when and if she's ready, if that ever is the case. So I can tell Your Honor, this is not a situation where Mr. Rino's going to, get it over and done with, leave here, do his 18 months, and so be it. This is as Your Honor knows, in cases like this is a very difficult and ongoing process. And for us, for members of the legal system, it ends. But for Brianna and for Moe, Mr. Rino, this is only the beginning. So